Oh, yeah, no. So I'm very happy you're all here, even though I'm slightly distracted at the moment. And I think we should be live.
That's what the notice tells me.
That's so exciting. I love it when the notice agrees with my experience. All right, and June had to re-enter. Let's add her back in. So, welcome everyone. Alan, it's so good to have you for the first time. June, can you hear me?
Where am I?
Thank you.
I can hear you, but I can't see me, and I want to see me.
Yeah, no, you're black on my screen as well. So I don't know how it is on the platform you're using, but normally for me, at the bottom of my screen, there's a place that says, if I hover over it, video, stop video, or start video, and I just have to click on that. And then
yes. And I did. I have done that.
Is your camera blocked in any way?
No. I tested it right before I came on.
I don't know what's going on. Is anyone more technical than I am? Hello, Alicia. Hello.
Hi.
All right.
I worked really hard to try to get a light on my face, and now I don't have any face.
So Robert says there's no sound for anyone on Facebook.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not on Facebook.
Robert, can you, let's see. How about now, Robert? Oh dear. I need a technology person to be on the Book of Faces as well.
This is the first time I've had this happen. I Zoom all the time with other people.
Right. Well, yeah, no, this is a new one for me as well.
Oh, God. I hate technology.
I'm not going to lie. I do as well sometimes, although it allows us to have book club. So I am perplexed, June. I don't know what to do. I gave you all of my advice. Try turning the video off and on again. That works in Microsoft.
I've done it several times.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm perplexed. There's nothing I'm doing on my end.
I mean, you could try leaving the chat and coming back.
I did that already twice.
Ah, crap.
Yeah. So I'm very sorry. It's beyond my ken, as they say.
Well, I'm going to move to the other room. See if
hello, Bill. Hello, Jeanette.
David.
Hello, everyone. David, Alan, who's here with us for the first time. Robert, who is watching from the Book of Faces. Thank you, Robert, for joining us. It's so good to be with all of you. I love our book club meetings, and even though we deal with the challenges of technology every time, there's always a problem. It's so lovely to have this opportunity to speak with all of you when we are unable to meet in person. And for some of us, Bill, Robert, Selena, David, Alan, Jeanette, it would be so hard for you to be here with us in person, even under normal circumstances. So this is a sort of beautiful silver lining.
It'd be a long drive.
We are...
Well, not a super long drive for me. I'm just usually doing stuff on Sundays.
Well, you know, someday I'm going to lure you to Antigone Books for book club.
I would love that. I would love to actually make it sometime.
So we will dive into the discussion here, but I just want to remind everyone that I have no intention of shelving the virtual book club, even when we are able to meet in person again.
Yay! Yay!
Hey.
I will continue to do this. And Bob and June and I will somehow manage to also facilitate the book club at Antigone Books as well. I know I can read 2 books a month, so I believe in all of you to also read 2 books a month. Right, June, fingers crossed. So I just want to, I'll probably remind you of that every time.
I don't know. I went out and came back in again, and I still have no picture. So.
I didn't know what's happening, June. I'm really.
I spent half an hour setting up with light so that my face would.
Oh,
No, I'm so perplexed, and I wish that the Grand Arbiter were here so he could.
Well, he doesn't do apples, so then I'd get bitched at for having an apple.
Oh,
oh well, I mean,
The only other thing I can think of is
about it.
What, David?
I was going to say the only other thing I can think of is to power off your device and start it again, because sometimes that'll resurrect the camera.
yeah.
Okay, well, you mean turn off my computer that I never turn off? Okay, I'll do that.
Yes, if you never turn it off, that might be part of why you're having some difficulty.
Oh, come on.
No, what's fun is to tell someone, because I'm a Department of Defense contractor, and so it's really fun to walk into the office of someone who makes way more money than I do and say, this will work if you restart your computer. Because it had been so long since it updated that its drivers were all messed up and its settings were all messed up. And it's like, it's not a miracle. It's just restart your computer every once in a while. It'll be fine.
Well, we shall see. I think that's what June is going to do. Fingers crossed. I will admit I love steampunk. I love science. I love invention and technology, but I am not a technologist. And so I have grave limitations in my ability to troubleshoot. But
Gee, I'm having a little difficulty. I'm interfacing my Babbage difference machine to handle the voiceover. Can you hear me properly?
I can hear you, Corolius.
Excellent. I'll just oil this over here and then we're all set. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Make sure all of your punch cards are in order. Sometimes can upset the vocal experience. So we are here today to discuss our current book club read, which is The Black God's Drum by Djèlí Clark, who visited with me Friday night for an interview. I'm very excited to discuss this book with all of you, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So I'm going to go around, and this is a very old school book club experience for those who come to the in-person book club. I'm going to ask all of you to share something that you really liked about the book. I'm just presuming that you really like it. So, all right. And I've lost my Facebook connection for a moment. So those of you in the comments, please do share what you like, and I will read that out when I get my connection back. All right, Jamie, would you be so kind as to start with what you liked about the book?
I really liked the integration of the goddesses and the magical metaphysical element into the book. And it got me sort of curious and researching and looking into those African goddesses. And I could go on, but you said one thing, so that's my one thing.
You will get more opportunities to speak. We don't really have a time limit per se, but if it hits about the 10-minute mark, then I start giving you hints. So you're fine. All right, Alan, who was here first and ready to go for his first book club with us. Hello, Alan. What was something you liked about the book?
It's nice to meet you. I really liked the way the alternate history was set up, and the magic, and I'm looking forward to a sequel. I really enjoyed the characters working their way through the story.
So I know Friday night during the interview, almost all of us expressed grave interest in a sequel, which the author is interested in doing. What I've learned from other authors, and David and Bill can back me up here, I think the best way to get a sequel is to review the book and let people know you love it, so the publisher should buy more. So, all right, speaking of David Lee Summers, would you be so kind?
All right. Well, I seem to remember that I first discovered this book about 2 years ago when I was reading for the Nebulas, and I was so enthused I sent you an email, I think, saying you need to read this book. So
yeah, and I bought a copy, I think, right then.
so I just love. So I really just loved it. I think what really caught me, I thought, even though it's an alternate New Orleans, it really felt like New Orleans in that. And just something about the whole flavor of it and the way he did the alternate history was just an element of it I just absolutely loved.
I agree entirely. When I was reading it,
Sam?
Like I had been transported to New Orleans. It was wonderful. All right, Carolius, Beatrix. Hello, my dears.
Hello, stupid bat machine. Hello. Oh, who wants to go first? From the first sentence, I was engrossed in the reading. It was just fantastic. Seeing it through the eyes of the narrator, it was really so remarkably vivid that way. And of course, alternate setting, was just really fantastic. All in all, what's not to like about the book? It was, it's a wonderful example of how steampunk has evolved from the old days of just cogs, steam, and coal.
Yes.
And then I noticed the amazing thing was that when you get into the steampunk point of view, especially through reading, all of the present day media and other kinds of constraints on your mind just fall away. And now you're all of a sudden entertaining whole new ideas and relationships between things. And not just in authors, but within the steampunk community, people respond when that happens to bringing in, higher powers of existence affecting our lives and our interaction with them. The very thing that our modern standard existence is hell-bent, you might say, on exterminating from our thoughts. So anyway, so much came out of reading this book that it was really remarkable. And I'm eagerly looking forward to its sequel.
Yes, yes.
Well, I think I have to agree with Alan. I really like the setting because the author is a historian. He did the alternate history particularly nicely. Yes. But one of the things that I've been thinking about since the author interview on Friday, I guess it was, is he really did do a nice job of the turns of phrase. And, after hearing him speak, I know that he took a great deal of trouble to have each of the characters have their own characteristic way of talking that was based on some regional difference between the airship captain and the people who lived in New Orleans and so on. And so I think that was another nice aspect that hasn't been brought up yet.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. As a linguist, I have to concur. It was gorgeous. Jeanette, my dove.
Hi.
Also, a quick note. June, you made it. We can see you.
Yay!
Yay! All right, Jeanette, what did you like?
Well, first I noticed no one else mentioned whether or not they were drinking tea and what they were drinking. Isn't that part of the deal? So I have this Iron Goddess Oolong that I got from those Steampunk tea guys.
Ooh,
and I love it.
Good.
I'm drinking gin and tonic.
Excellent. All right, so
June has the right idea.
Right, so I need to actually get to the local, like, actual liquor stores rather than the grocery stores so I can get good gin. Because, you know, at Fry's, they don't sell good gin.
No, you don't.
They do it at Albertsons. You should try Albertsons.
Well, we don't have that here.
Oh.
I have my choices are Fry's, Safeway, Walmart, and Food City.
Well, Safeway and Albertsons are the same store.
That's true. Anyhow, so I loved this book. I had read a couple of different stories from the same author on Tor.com. You know, every once in a while they put free content out there. So I already knew I was in for something good because I had read something from him before. And I want to say I loved it. I love that almost all of the characters and all the main characters are women. And they were all, again, very distinctive, strong characters. And I want to hang out with those nuns.
Yes.
I mean, if that's the setting I found myself in by some mysterious way, I'd be like, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to hang out. Because they seemed great. And I really liked how they were and how they were all characterized. And I loved the little feral girl. Because usually when you read a story like this, you know, and this one's clearly turned around. Usually the little feral girl is, well, not white, generally. So I thought it was a neat turnaround that she's this, you know, from this possibly from this degenerated line of plantation owners, that this is where they got to. And so now she's a clean slate to be re-civilized or left alone the way she is. You know, because she's clearly a competent, intelligent person. She just doesn't fit into how we expect people to act. So I really liked all of the characters. I thought they were fantastic, but I definitely would want to hang out with those nuns.
The nuns were fantastic. So they were, and I did actually study a long time ago with a priest from Louisiana, and he was very much in that mold. So in my brief Catholic schoolgirl days.
Oh yeah.
So,
but yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. Hello. What did you like about the book, my dear? Oh, it's Alicia.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's all right.
I just the computer was being
it does that
on speed. As everyone else has said, of course, I really liked the world building, that it's just so immediately real. That the characters all had a unique voice. It took me a while to figure them out because I kept hearing the same accent in my head. But I know in my head, but I also know that Trinidad and Haiti are very far away. So they shouldn't sound the same, but initially they did. That's just me. But there's just so much about the book I like. The one thing that I initially didn't think I was going to like was from the viewpoint of the girl. Because it's a common trope in steampunk to have this young person that comes into their own. And I thought he used it very well and very differently in that at the end of the book, she does come into her own, but not in the same way. At the end, they're like, yeah, you're 13, you're a kid. You have a lot to learn, and no, you're not coming on the airship. You're going to go to school, and you're going to learn your numbers, and when you're an adult, you can come and work. And I liked that because I was afraid that she was just going to become this airship thing. And, you know, it was like, don't do that. And I'm glad he did, but I did really enjoy it for 1,000 reasons.
Oh, lovely. Well, also leave it to the professor to work in the no kid go to school in a very thoughtful way.
Yeah.
It's very good. All right, June,
Yes, yes.
What did you like about the book, my dear?
Just a second. I just got a software update and I'm closing down. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I get for restarting my computer. Then it tells me I need to update the software. What did I like? Well, I just thought it was marvelous. And of course, being me, I went right off and read The Haunting of Tramcar 015 and The Dead Djinn in Cairo. And then watching him speak the other night with that interview. First of all, I'd like to say that I think this is wonderful because we get to have these authors as opposed to other book groups I've been in where sometimes you can get the author if they're local. We had Barbara Kingsolver years ago before she was famous in my other book group. But we get, because of this virtual world, we get to have all the authors. And he was the most amazing speaker because he's a college professor, I suppose. I was blown away by him personally. And if anybody in this group hasn't watched that video, they need to go off and do that. So what did I like about it? I liked everything.
Excellent answer. And I have to admit that I would love to take a class with Mr. Clark in his role as professor. I'm certain he's an extraordinary teacher because he is so compelling as a speaker.
And he has twins.
And he has twins. They're two.
Recent, or his wife had twins, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's where he is today, is at their birthday party, actually. So.
Oh, that's why. That's why he couldn't be on today. Well, that was fine, because it was a marvelous interview, and he was really interesting, and it just led me to wonder about things like the Haitian revolt and all kinds of things because I've never been to New Orleans. I don't know about many of those things in the Caribbean, and now I want to. So.
Well, in good news, once it goes up, you'll see that this last week's research roundup on the Patreon is all about New Orleans and the Haitian Revolution. So I've done some collecting for you. All right, Anne, hello. It's your turn.
I need to unmute. Yet once again, I did not read past the first chapter.
That's all right.
Life is life sometimes. But what I have enjoyed in the first chapter is the feeling of being there. I'm really into senses and feeling and seeing, and I can, when they said you have to, sometimes it's so hot you lay down in your own sweat.
Yes.
Hello, where do we live? I could just feel that, and the mugginess, and I could almost smell where I was, and I've never been to New Orleans. But from the talk we had the night before, and then reading the portion of it, I was like, because I was reading it in his voice. After I heard him, I wasn't reading male or female. His voice was reading it to me, and it really enhanced it for me. And so I am looking forward to, I keep looking down at the book over here. I'm looking forward to reading more of it so that I can become a part of this world. And in honor of June.
Oh yeah, Hendrix is good stuff.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Hendrix is good stuff.
I got it as a Christmas present once and have been stuck with it. So not with the bottle, but with the brand, because I really like it.
That's good.
But
Hendrix is good stuff.
I really enjoy you can tell his cadence in reading it. I hear his I don't know how to describe it. It's like he was narrating it verbally to me, and I enjoy that kind of being story told.
Excellent.
That's what I liked about it. So
yeah, you've got a wonderful story ahead, and all of his work is, I think, equally top notch. So for me, he's right in the top 10 steampunk authors, certainly in this current wave of authors. So beautiful prose. All right, Selena. Hello.
Hello there.
Hello.
So I love the characters. I love the nuns. I liked that it brought some things that made me curious. So I want to look more into some of the history and stuff that he brought. However, I loved it so much that I was really, really sad when it was over. And I know that somebody had said they're glad that he didn't push it to a longer book. But it's like you got this little sip of these wonderful characters and this beautiful, land and just setting, and then it was over. And it's like, oh. So I'm really, really wanting him to do more. Because it was just, I like that it wasn't just a story. It was kind of educational as well. Because it was bringing in some history. And some of it I know about, but not enough. And so it made me want to go and look for more about it. So I'm glad that you are did some research things for us to kind of look into.
Yes, I did. And I just have to polish it off and then I'll post it up for everyone.
Yay!
So that's waiting. Yes. Bill. Hello, Bill. Everyone say a big thank you to Bill, or round of applause. He is who helps facilitate getting Mr. Clark as a guest for the interview. Bill was very essential in making that happen. And
it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, pretty much everyone else has covered the things that I enjoyed about this book. I loved the language, the way he sort of phonetically spelled out the patois that the characters use. That was really, and that was a nice touch, I thought, too, to sort of give them a little bit of a different voice from each other, make it easier to distinguish them. Not everyone likes supernatural elements in their steampunk, but I thought it worked beautifully in this, and it's also worked beautifully in Haunting of Tramcar 15, which, if you haven't read it yet, is every bit as good as Black God's Drums, and it's up for a Hugo Award very soon at virtual New Zealand Worldcon. So if you have a membership, you have a couple days left to go out and vote. Please do consider voting for this. But regardless, pick up a copy because it's quite good. And about this, it's pretty similar. It's a little bit longer than Black God's Drums. Set in Cairo too, so a little bit different characters, but really enchanting. And he's got a story also set in Cairo in this anthology, Clockwork Cairo, which has a number of really good stories in it, all of them set in and around Egypt.
I've read that, and yet I didn't pick that up that he has one in there. I'll have to go back and reread that.
Yes.
That's down.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only reason we did not read that anthology, it's in-person book club, is because it was not readily available as a physical copy. But Bill has a physical copy. I'm a little jealous. And you can get it as a digital copy. So, I'm not saying we won't read that anthology. We might. It's so good. There are many good stories in there.
Yes, Gail Carringer has a story in there too.
Yes, she does.
Yes, and George Mann too, Nisi Shaw. How would that work just on a technical basis for covering an anthology? It would be too difficult to have the authors present because there'd be 20 of them.
Yes. I mean, I could try, but it would be more of an author round table at that point. So
seems like it would be a little awkward.
The editor as a guest.
Oh, that's a good compromise, yeah.
So
and the one time we did Straight Out of Tombstone, we had one author guest from the group, so you can pick one or two maybe to be represented.
That works too. We might be able to get an author or two and the editor, or some combination. So, but I love anthologies as a way to introduce authors to check out further. So,
Oh yeah.
everyone loves anthologies, but I do. Robin, hello. And you've got your
Hello.
cat. Is that
Yes,
Sylvester?
I've got Sylvester right here. He wishes to briefly. Well, the reason he's joining is because there is a little bit of charcuterie on the plate next to me. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get to hang out here."
Yeah, I just lost my tuxedo cat. He ran away, and he's
no!
been gone almost 2 weeks now. And I'm like, oh,
Oh, Jeanette, I was hoping he'd come home.
me too. But I think we're finally reconciling ourselves to the fact that he is not going to come back.
I'm sorry. That's
Me
hard.
too. But your cat is adorable. Scratch him
knows it.
extra. We still have another cat, but and she is also lonely. You can tell.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
kind of swanning around and being extra cuddly.
They do.
Well, that is an excuse to adopt another cat.
Well, I don't think we're quite ready yet. Like I said, I had him for 11 years, and it's only been 2 weeks since he's been gone. I don't think we're quite ready yet, but
when
we
the
will.
time is right, you'll know.
Anyway, sorry to derail everybody.
That's fine. And
Animal
I'm
lovers.
drinking a little bit of bourbon.
Oh, that's the good stuff there.
Knob Creek, not
That's
bad.
not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Bourbon is good stuff.
Right, Robin, so what did you like about the book?
Oddly enough, I actually really liked the length because I've literally been like, it's everyone giving book recommendations, and my list of books I have downloaded on Libby is so massive. And it's like every couple of days I'm like, oh crap, I'm running low on these books. Like, I'm like, oh crap, I have in the next 2.5 days, I have to read Mercedes Lackey's The Hills Has Eyes and Catherine Arden's The Bear and the Nightingale. So I'm like, ah! So it was actually really nice to be like, oh, this book is a little bit shorter. Oh, this book's a really fast read. Oh, yay, yeah. There's no meandering. There's, no weird, things in there that, ends up being filler, Mr. Jim Butcher. Which I'm going to give myself a little bit of time before I read Peace Talks, because I'm just like, I've reread that series so many times. At a certain point, I go, wait, the plot is being derailed, so you can have this random thought bubble on something that doesn't really matter. Is this filler? Is this filler? So yes, this book had no filler. This book was, okay, we're introducing our characters. We are introducing our plot. Oh, look, we have a bit of gap in the plot. Awesome nuns! Solve all problems.
Yes. Well, and I think a nice thing here is that as a novella, there aren't a lot of developed subplots, but there are many hints of places that we could go later. And I know I'm ready for the stories of the schoolgirls with the nuns, and I want to see what happens there. And I'd like to follow Captain Anne-Marie on, the midnight.
To the Free States? Yeah.
I'm
to
just
the Free States of Haiti? Heck yeah.
And we need a drawl through New Orleans, and we can go, oh, I want to eat that, and eat that, and eat that, and eat that.
It made me miss New Orleans very deeply. And I know David Lee is a big fan of New Orleans as well. So
I want to go there.
So we all go there once the plague is over.
Yes.
Right. Oh God, please.
So I didn't get to hear the interview with the author. And when I got to the end of his acknowledgments at the end of the book, and he told the story of how he really met New Orleans, did he talk about that Friday night at all?
He talked a little bit about going to New Orleans as a young person and having slurricanes, which is a new way of referring to hurricanes for me. So, but I don't think he went into a lot of great depth.
Yeah, well, I went to New Orleans to do some research back when I was in grad school, and that was pre-Katrina.
Oh yeah.
And I felt the ghosts. I mean, it's an interesting place. And I was I drove over the lake to go out into a swamp area because I was doing some research and evaluation on an environmental learning program that was going on out in the swamp. And like my first night there, we were at a campfire, and the forest is so dense, and then you have the humidity that is so dense that you feel like you're literally in a room, even if you're in sort of a spacious area. And we had this campfire, and I'm sitting there amongst the kids, and then all of a sudden, I mean, the little hairs on the back of my neck were up, just being in the setting. And then all of a sudden, this branch falls off of one of the big overarching mossy trees, you know, and it was just, it was special. But then when I actually went into New Orleans and had my first experiences going into the restaurants and down to the quarter, I had never experienced such a palpable, whatever the word is, delineation between the people who were dining and people who were drinking and the people who were working there. So it was all white people dining, drinking, spending money, and it was all Black people serving.
Oh, the delineations in New Orleans and in Louisiana are very strong to this day. I lived there for a little while, not in New Orleans, but in Louisiana. And I don't want to derail too much, but yeah, no, there is a lot. The distinction between who socializes with whom is very strong.
So I really enjoyed the concept of Free New Orleans as a way to sort of take back something there.
Very much. It was beautiful. Also based in some reality, not entirely, but there was a very strong segment of free people of color in New Orleans that had a really rich, vibrant history, which I encourage you all to explore. And you will see that I have shared some information in the research roundup, as I like to think of them.
Good.
So, and normally, so if you're not a subscriber to the Patreon, normally that's a Patreon perk, but I will make this one public so everyone can have access to that research.
Cool.
Charity says that she's just popping in briefly. She has to go to work, so she's getting ready. But she loved that everything was spelled the way people talk, deep respect for the characters, being fully fleshed out, real people, not just archetypes. And the way that God's manifested was brilliant. So, and I think we can all agree with those sentiments, as we've all touched on that a bit ourselves. So, normally I like to ask your favorite character, and I sensed that a few of us really liked the nuns. But I would like to hear about, maybe instead of a favorite character, because they're all so brilliant, maybe a favorite moment in the book, something that really resonated at a special level for you. Alan, you've been very patient, so I'm going to start with you, if you like.
Sure. One thing that struck me was the way the gods worked through the humans, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. It reminded me of a book by Lois Bujold, I think, called The Curse of Chalion.
Oh yeah.
I haven't read that one, but I've read a bunch of her other stuff though.
Yeah, so
Cool.
so that was very similar in the way that the sort of gods influenced, but didn't really have direct powers on their own. I enjoyed that part of the book quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I like that marriage of the mythic and the supernatural with fiction. So full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of urban fantasy, starting with Charles de Lint. So anything that has a supernatural element in it, I'm just a steampunk heretic. Give me more. So, right, David, As an author, you must have your own particular take on things, but what's a moment that really transported you in the story?
Well, in a way, the whole book did, but there's something about the scene where Creeper first appears at the brothel. And I think it was that sense of family where she's sort of swept in as a daughter, but knows her way around. And when she sneaks up to the captain, it was just sort of that familiarity with this sort of very alien kind of, kind of place. And, but it's, of course, back in the 1800s, brothels were ubiquitous around New Orleans, hence, House of the Rising Sun and all of that. But it felt like you actually got to see why these places were sort of such, he captured the sort of social, not so much acceptability, but the fact that they were kind of the unspoken place that people just were.
There's a lot more mixing
Yes.
across the strata in the brothel than you'd find in other parts of New Orleans.
And a lot of that scene just really came to life for me. I think, it's like up till then we kind of had some description, we had some setting of scenes, but then things really started popping for me about that point in the book. So I love that scene as well, and I have to admit it made me think a bit about this Anne Rice novel from a million years ago. I'm not sure I would recommend it now, as I haven't read it in 20 some odd years. I'd need to revisit it, but it was set in roughly the same time in New Orleans. So, all right, Beatrix Crolius, a moment that really transported you in the novel.
Well, I think I agree with you and David that there is something about the scene in the brothel, and so that sort of maybe begs the larger question of fiction and makes me think of worlds built by Ursula Le Guin and other people who were really good at showing you how things could be. There's all of these different groups, and maybe they don't always play nicely in every setting, but it was very interesting to see how he laid out a different world that had a lot of diversity in it.
Yes.
Ooh. Just to catch up, I'm drinking a Lapsang Souchong tea, and my ship's doctor recommended a pinch of Egyptian mumia, and all in a copper bowl.
Nice. Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yes. Well,
you've got some mummy.
Yeah, so I like the story evolved that we realize her position in society is not what it first seemed, and everyone, knows sort of one another, especially through the women. And they seem to be the mainstays of the social network, that kind of grouping. But in the very beginning, and throughout the book, I was really appreciative of her ability to go to the Great Walls and find these little niches, and then just by chance overhear this conversation, put a few things together, and realize, wow, I could get something out of this. And so she already knew about the captain. And so as soon as she heard about the jewel and that the meeting would be taking place, she had already set up a whole plot line of actions. So I found that a really very intriguing way to start off, and a very remarkable kind of person.
Creeper is a really smart cookie. She reminds me a bit of Sophronia from the Finishing School series by Matt Carriger.
I still need to read those.
Oh my goodness, yes, you have such treats. It was such a treat.
I know. I've read the first ones, the ones with Prudence in them. I read those.
Right. All
And I
right.
You
haven't
read the
gotten
third series and the first series, but not the second. You need to read the finishing school. It's so good.
That's
Yeah.
what I understand.
That's the third, with
So
Prudence, that's the
good.
third series. You haven't read the whole middle or the first.
It was the first one I came across.
Well,
So
the lovely thing is you have so much to look forward to because
Right.
those books are beautiful.
right.
But I don't want to spoiler it too much. So Jeanette, what is a moment in this novella that's really resonated with you? And by the way, I just want to say I'm glad I was right and you could finish in time to be at book club.
Oh yeah, I started it last night and I finished it today. Yeah, but I'm a relatively fast reader. So yeah, I was easily able to finish it in time. But anyway, so I think the moment that really like brought the story to me was when Creeper snuck into the room with Anne Marie and she sees her artificial leg. And I'm like, oh, because airships, but now it's a steampunk story. Now it's someone's had adventures and things have gone wrong.
She has a really cool mechanical leg.
Yeah, she has a cool mechanical leg, but also it's when the supernatural elements really start to meet up when she sees her light. And
Yes.
she's like, oh, I see. There is really something else going on here. This isn't just me making some money off of some information I found. There is something else going on here. And that was really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a wonderful moment. And we learned so much about the captain and her connection to Creeper in that moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's an interesting character, and I really hope to see her again.
Me too. Selena, hello, my dear. What is something about the book that really transported you?
So I know it's just a minor little thing and it wasn't like a bombshell for the book, but see, you have the little feral girl, and in a way she's set up as, obviously very different, very, not the norm. But that one little scene where they are in the kitchen and they're like, oh, be careful of her because she bites. And she looks up with the little crab thing out of her hanging out of her mouth and smiles. It's like, I can see any kid doing that. And so it pulled her from being this other to being one of the same people. It's like, yes, she was brought up a different way. Yes, she thinks different ways. But that one thing, it's like, okay, she's just like the rest of everybody, and connects her back to that society because any little kid would do that.
Yes.
And while it's not a big bombshell in the thing, it was just, to me, that just the one character that kind of seemed outside of everything was brought back into being part of the society by that one little thing.
It's a very humanizing moment.
Mm-hmm.
Really beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Selena. Robert has added, I liked many things about this book, he says. I think they've all been mentioned already. The moment that transported me was probably when the airship came to the swamp, the abandoned city. He says he'd love to read what Mr. Clark could do with the Midnight Robber and her crew in a sequel. I know I would too. I would probably book passage on that ship. Maybe not to go on adventures, but to go to dinner, that'd be nice. So, all right, Bill, would you like to share a moment that transported you in the book?
And you had to have read Robert's description just before me, didn't you? Because that's exactly what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
The rest of the book I was reading, I was interested, but as soon as they went out into the swamp, I sort of hunched over the book. It just was really became a much more intense experience for me. That
Oh,
and just sort of general descriptions of New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans twice. Once I was there with my wife, and once I was there with the vampires. So it both times it were a totally different experience.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Well,
but it was very evocative. The whole book was very evocative of New Orleans, and I got what he said in the interview about how New Orleans is one of the few American cities that really feels ancient. And I guess I would have to agree with that. It definitely does. It feels like there are more layers underneath everything than what you're seeing. You can sort of feel them somehow.
Yep.
Well, the swamp holds many secrets, first of all, and there was a very vibrant indigenous, culture there before people started colonizing the area. And all of that is very present for me when I visit. And there's something about a swamp anyway. But for me, having lived there, when they went into the swamp, my reaction was, no, not in the swamp. Oh, the snakes. Oh, no, they're in the water, the snakes. So now you can picture me reading the book. So, Anne, hello. As soon as I ask you, as soon as you take a drink, you can tell I serve tea professionally. Anne, what is...
By the way, you'll never know what I'm drinking.
Oh, no, what are you drinking?
You'll never know.
Oh, I'll never know. All right. Oh.
Mysterious.
If he tells us he has to kill us, is that what's going on here?
There was a giant G on there like it's from Gatorade.
Oh.
So, Anne, I know you've just read the first chapter, but it's a doozy of a chapter.
Cake.
Cake.
Yes, Cake woke up when I was screaming about snakes.
Monsieur Gâteau!
Had to come check on me. So what is something that you found really transporting in that first chapter?
It's going to sound probably silly because it's very simple, but when she has to make herself small in the alcove, personal history, I had to do stuff like that when I was a kid. My dad suffered from PTSD from Nam. And so getting into small spaces and becoming one with the dark, that really, I was looking outside of the alcove with her when I was reading it. So that really put me, because it's past memories it blends onto. And it really put me in where she is and how much danger she truly is. She's a street kid. So, I mean, she could become one of the kids without fingers. And that is what really drew me into the book and made me actually see the city as she sees it. Because yeah, it's beautiful, but there's a lot of dangers there. And that one little image made me realize, wow, anything could happen to her. So that's what pulled me into it was that one little spot where she has to hide in the alcove because these men are there. So
it's a very powerful moment, and I think it sets such a very important tone for everything about Creeper as a character.
It makes me realize why she is not necessarily jaded, but why she sees the world the way that she sees it.
She's a very pragmatic soul, right? Because she has to be.
Yeah. And it's not like this is bad, this is good. It's kind of like this is the way it is. And I was like, wow, it transported me. That's the part I like.
It's a very important part, I think, of that first chapter. Robin, it's your turn. What's something that transported you in the story?
Actually, it was just the gods they were using. I've been a long time supporter, because they're based in Los Angeles, of Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. And one of the first of their scents I ever bought was Shango, which is a very fruit-forward scent. And I didn't actually know who Shango was. So I know there's all these different lore they draw from. But then suddenly I'm like, wait, Shango. Why do I know that name? And I'm like, perfume!
That's
also
delightful.
Yeah, also I had just finished watching my second read of Hamilton's. When the book started, I was reading it it was floating in my head between Leslie Odom Jr. and Lin-Manuel Miranda, till I realized the character was a girl, and I'm like, well, you guys aren't going to work in my head.
I love that. I haven't watched Hamilton yet, so I need to.
So good.
I've heard very good things.
Oh, and we have a visit from the Silly Vester again.
Oh, hello, Puss. Oh my goodness, he's such a beauty.
He is, and he knows it. He knows he's a pretty boy.
I love this spot. All right, June, my darling, what is a moment that transported you in the story?
Who did you say?
You.
Me.
Lady June Squirrel.
Lady June Squirrel. I was quite fascinated with the fellow in the skeleton costume and his singing of the song about Andrew Jackson and the whole history of Andrew Jackson and the War of 1812 and then they were out in the swamp and he's singing this song and is the song powerful, or does he just do that to be creepy?
He just does it to be creepy. And so there's an affinity in the South with Andrew Jackson. He's very admired by Southerners. So there's some of that going on as well. It's what we'd call a bit of a dog whistle these days. It sets up a bit of a flavor about this character. Because if you support Andrew Jackson, you support some very unfortunate policies. To, use understatement. So
that's exactly the way I read it as well. The Andrew Jackson was a bit of a let's go back to the old where the colored people were in their place. That's the way I read that song.
Indian massacre Indians as well.
He was the author of The Trail of Tears, so there's that element as well. So very complicated and not very nice historical character.
But why did they want to blow up New Orleans? They wanted the power of because that was a place where the blacks had freedom, and so because we're rebels of the leftover rebels, we have, I don't know, it's just like
I think that's part of it, is that they wanted to reclaim the area for the former plantation owners, but also to upset the balance of power. As if you remove the neutral party that's between the two warring factions, then you may leverage that to your advantage, I suppose. It's not a reasonable plan, but it's a plan.
Right, and on my second reread, I noticed that they did say that the Jeannot had as their stated objective either to capture or destroy New Orleans. If they couldn't capture it, they would destroy it.
Better destroyed New Orleans than a New Orleans controlled by the black population.
It's interesting how we've read several books where the North and South didn't win the war, but are they're in a balance of stasis sort of with each other.
It's true.
What last month we had the one with the great houses, right?
That's right.
Yes, where there had been the war, but in the North the great houses were the shipbuilders and the whatever. So with the Boston Metaphysical Society.
That's correct.
It's interesting. It's a way of getting away from having all steampunk be set in Victorian England.
It is, and also it's such a pivotal moment in US history in the 19th century. You change that, you change everything. So I think that's part of it. I mean, that's my suspicion. David and Bill may have a different take on it. So
I was just going to say, I think for me, some of it is you get into, it's a way of addressing really some of the struggles we're dealing with right now. That it's, you know, we're all of the issues, you know, a lot of us sort of grew up in a world where we were taught all of the issues of the Civil War were finished with the Civil War. And, you know, it was sort of a wishful thinking. And I think there's a very there's a very true reality in writing stories where, no, the Civil War really did not end. You know, and in this case, you're using a real civil war as a metaphor for the ongoing struggle between people, classes, races.
yeah, no, that resonates very much with me, David. Alicia, my dear, what is something that resonated or really transported you from the book?
I think for me it was the way he used the supernatural aspect, the way he described it as being very ordinary. Like this is just how it is. And I thought there's this lovely action description at the end of the swamp when she's dispelling the storm, and the whole narrative just builds, and you can almost feel her power growing and her just embracing and using that power to take this other piece just off.
Yes.
And I thought it was it's one of those, that passage where you can't stop. You just read it until the end. And at that point, you just read it, and then suddenly he stops it because the storm is gone. And then there's this pause, which I thought was just wonderful storytelling, because it's this huge action sequence. And you can see that it's steampunk, but at the same time, it's also supernatural and magical. And it just blended so well that I just loved it.
I love that bit too. And I do think he has a gorgeous rhythm, a beautiful pacing to his storytelling there. Jamie, I saved you for last on this one. What's something that transported you?
Well, I really got pulled into the city in the swamp, and I thought that was just gorgeous, and I was right there. And in particular, when Creeper is going to save Jewel to try to bust her out, and we have this fight scene, we have this action scene against a major antagonist for the whole story, and 3 little girls take him down, get out. I was like, yes!
Wasn't that a scene? Oh my goodness.
I enjoyed that very much. And I really appreciated, that wasn't the only time in the story where you had young women in a powerful position, being powerful. And I just wanted to kind of dovetail onto that I really loved that Creeper was having to teach Anne Marie how to come into her power, with letting go of the resistance of the goddess within her.
Yes, that is a lovely conversation that they have about Creeper's experience and how she's trying to help Anne Marie with hers. I love that moment. So we are at about an hour into book club, so that we can go longer, but if you are exhausted, from discussing. It's completely fine. Good night, Jamie. Thank you for being here and talking about your dragon. So normally in-person book club, I always ask, is it steampunk? And I think in most of our meetings to date, we've had so many, and we've had the author present. So we usually run out of time before we can even address that question. So, and Alan referenced it a little bit. Some people don't like the supernatural added to their steampunk. And I've met some people who really draw a fine line between, but that's steampunk and that's gaslight fantasy. So steampunk is science fiction and gaslight fantasy is the fantastical. Full disclosure, I don't make that distinction. But I would love to get some feedback. I'm going to start with David, put him on the spot a bit.
Well, you know, that you're talking to the guy who has a woman who talks to owls, you know, asking if it's this magical story is steampunk. Absolutely, I think it is. And just in the sense of it being an alternate history, in the sense of it being in the sense of it, you know, the airships, the technology, you know, there's kind of a certain element of if it looks like steampunk, if it walks like steampunk, it's steampunk. And I think this very much does. And I thought, you know, unfortunately, I was sad I had to miss the interview. I didn't see, I didn't actually see that you had a chance to do that on Friday night, but I did watch it this afternoon. I got to watch the archived video, but you know, I was just, I completely related to Djèlí Clark's take on, you know, I sort of grew up knowing all that stuff like Jules Verne, you know, and that's what I wanted to write, and watching Mysterious Island and all of that. And I think just he's coming from that same set of roots when he writes this sort of magical historical story where technology features, but I think even though there is magic, I think I would count it as steampunk. Yes,
Well, clearly I do as well. So, and yeah, I mean, I love your talking owls. So, Anne, I know you have not read the whole thing, but I feel like you can get a sense of what the book is in that first chapter. Really, it sets the tone. So what's your take?
Well, from what I hear, from what everybody else is saying about it, my idea of steampunk has a lot to do not with who's in it, but what accoutrement is used. Like the old gears and cogs, you know, and dirigible, and the fantasy things made of brass, and things powered by steam. To me, if the story's a good story and those things are in it, to me, then it's steampunk. Then I can put myself in that world, and I can get rid of the disbelief of reality and be part of what's happening. And like if I saw an airplane come by in the story, if they said it wouldn't fit right unless they set it up from the beginning that both work together. So to me, it depends on the cogs and gears. To me, that's what makes it steampunk.
Excellent. Thank you, Anne. All right, Robin. What did you think? Was it steampunk? Oh, you just turned yourself off.
I had myself unmute, I muted myself. There were airships. It's steampunk.
That's solid. Well, we do have a byword at the Antigone Book Club. If there's an airship in it, it's good enough for us. So yeah, great airship it is too.
You have to have gears too.
And there were gears too, that's right, June. So what did you think? Was this steampunk?
Oh, yes.
Excellent.
And I am not offended by supernatural. In fact, I love supernatural stuff. Even if it isn't steampunk, I love supernatural stuff. So.
Oh yes, no, I love it too. No, if I had time, I'd probably start a urban fantasy book club as well. But I have to cut myself off. Bill, what did you think? I suspect I know, but I'm curious.
I honestly, I don't care. I mean, technically, I think, yeah, there's an airship, so okay, that's steampunk, I guess. But it was a great story, and I don't. If people want to argue that it isn't steampunk, they can do that somewhere else. I liked it a lot. It fits, the very loose parameters I have for steampunk.
I think Professor Mental's the one who said it's not steampunk to say it isn't steampunk. So,
well, I mean,
Ermagerd.
Steampunk, alternate history to begin with. So if you're going to quibble about which particular brand of alternate history is the right one, there's the door.
All right.
And David, sometime I would like to hear more about your wife talking to owls.
Oh, the owl. Oh, Bill, you have such a treat for you. If you have not read David Lee Summers' Clockwork Legion books, I must recommend them to you most highly.
And I will say
down now. Those? That would be good if somebody could leave a link to those.
Yes, yes, a link.
I will put a link to my webpage and chat here in a second. And but yes, it's not my wife who actually talks to owls, but it was Fatima who's the protagonist. If there's anyone in my family who's been talking to owls, it probably was me who started it. But we can go in, that sidetracks this whole conversation. So.
I'm a bird watcher from way back, so that kind of stuff fascinates me.
Well, you will like Fatima. She's a great character. And David, I'm sorry, I'm going to compliment you. Each of the books is better than its predecessor. So every time David releases a book, I say, no, this is my favorite. But I've said that about every single one. And the cast of characters is really tremendous. So we're at 5 books now, aren't we, David?
4 books.
4. Wishful thinking on my part.
Yes. We need to do a 5th one.
We do.
It's in the plans, but it's it needs to. We need to get some other things out of the way first.
All right. Well, fingers crossed. Selena, hello. Your turn. What do you think? Steampunk?
So, first off, I'm relatively new to steampunk, so I don't know all the definitions. And secondly, I don't like to put people in boxes, so I don't like to put my books in boxes either. If it's a good story,
unless you're moving.
Well, yes, exactly. But it's like, as long as it's a good story and it has good characters, and then that's what I'm looking for. And so I loved it regardless of whether or not, the experts in steampunk think it is or not.
Well, being an expert in steampunk is sort of a dubious claim, I think. If it's how do you have expertise in a made-up fictional genre? But there are some of us who are very well read, I suppose. And I will tell you, I think I told June and others when they were first diving in to steampunk a decade ago now, believe it or not. It is what you make of it. You are the determining factor. It's about your imagination and your interpretation. No one else's matters. Not really. So, all right, and that's my radical statement for the moment. Jeanette, what did you think? Steampunk?
I want to say yes, and I say yes because we all talk about the steam part, but sometimes we don't always talk about the punk part, which is defined by, and I hate to say defined when we're talking about punk, right? But when it's the underdog that makes things happen, or it's, yeah, you've got this great piece of technology, but it doesn't necessarily work right. Like, so again, she's got this mechanical leg, but she limps. So you have to kind of, and it gives kind of that grit to a story that I think is kind of one of my requirements for steampunk, is that it doesn't necessarily have to, the technological stuff can, vary widely, and whether it's got magic or not magic doesn't really matter, but it has to have that, either like using things in ways they're not intended, or maybe things didn't exactly go as planned. I mean, there has to be something else going on there that isn't just like the Star Trek version of steampunk. There's got to be, of steam technology, there's got to be something else going on there. And I think the story absolutely meets those requirements.
Absolutely. It really does. Beautifully. I would like to add to that my personal predilection, when I'm evaluating something as how it relates to steampunk, is I do look for things that challenge the status quo and evaluate the ethics of how we use technology. Right. I think the best steampunk stories do that. I know David's does. So I'm such a fangirl for David. Sometimes I feel
you like owe her some drinks or something, David. I mean, she's really,
he's
pushing your work.
Drinks. We're good.
Next, when we're out of quarantine, and in fact, we've already talked about, we need to do the Tucson Steampunks need to make the New Orleans trip, so I can do the speakeasy, and I owe you a few drinks there too.
Oh, I think so. No, I would take a Sazerac in New Orleans again. No, I cannot promise anything, but I do say that the Grand Arbiter and I have long talked about doing the long weekends away in really fascinating locations, and New Orleans is very high on the list. So we'll see what happens post-quarantine. All right, Alicia, I've saved the best. It's your turn. What do you think? Is it steampunk? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Okay. I think yes, but I whether or not you consider it steampunk, I think has a lot to do with what you define as steampunk. And I think my definition of steampunk is much wider than a lot of people's, which is probably why I get a lot of flack. Because I wear Guardian clothing. I'm like this shy of 6 feet and a stick. I am that body shape.
You are perfect. Also, you will get no flack here. I will have you know. If they do give you flack, my hat pin is very long and very sharp. So...
Yeah, did you see the swords behind me? Let me just,
Yeah, I've been eyeing those the last couple sessions and curious, like, ooh, she has shiny things.
Yeah. So, my definition of steampunk is, or how I describe steampunk to people who aren't into it, is it's that we as a culture, or we as people, have gotten to this point in the world where we believe we understand enough of the world. We have the science and technology to create a better world. We're now able to do that. And it's this, that early Victorian period where there was this sense of wonder that, hey, we can take science and technology and create a better world and make one that is equal and fair and cleaner. I realize that the Industrial Revolution did not turn out that way. But what steampunk allows us to do is to take that sense of wonder and command and create a world where it really does happen. And I think this book that world exists. It's a little dirty and it's a little yucky, but within that world, there are people who are actually, I think, trying to make a better world. And I think he's created characters who I think, as they grow, are going to improve that world. So yes, I think it's totally steampunk.
That's lovely. It's lovely.
You know.
I like your definition, and also please wear all the Edwardian things. As I'm 5'3", I should admire you and your tallness. I go for broad rather than tall. So,
well, I also have a former coworker who was ragingly huge into West Coast swing.
Oh, yes.
But she was that shape, and because she could sew, she got a hold of a lot of her grandmother's vintage 40s and 50s patterns. And being a Polish girl, was roughly the same size as her grandmother, and made all of these vintage clothes. And they were fabulous. And she just is that shape, and she just rocked it.
That's
and
wonderful.
I hated her so much.
So, the nice thing about being time travelers is we can find the silhouettes that we like. Yeah. It's very nice. So, right. I think we're almost at 6 p.m. here, and I don't want to keep you much longer. I don't have a definitive answer for next month's book, but I should have one shortly. Bill, again, has been very helpful in finding an entree to reach out to an author that I hope will be available in August. I'm giving them the moment to tell me if they cannot come, because we might reschedule for the time that they can be available. Otherwise, we will read the book anyway. So wait 24 to 48 hours, and I hope to have an announcement for you. Regardless, I promise that we are always looking for good things. And by we, I mean me, Bill, June, Barbara, David, everyone who sends me recommendations. I absolutely look into them. And the nice, really beautiful thing about doing the virtual book club is that I can say yes to almost everything in a way that I could not for book club at Antigone, which is not to say Antigone was ever not interested in a topic or an author, but they must be able to order the books and also return them if they can't sell them. And so that is a limiter. Whereas for this venue, we don't have that limit. So if you have a recommendation, if you have a book you think would be a really good fit for book club, do let me know. We are looking into books for 2021 at this point. We have much of the rest of the year sort of softly scheduled. So we'll see how it goes forward. I'm very excited. We will be meeting next month on the 3rd Sunday of the month in the afternoon, probably roughly the same time, give or take 30 minutes.
What date is that going to be?
I think that's let me look here. The 16th of August.
I may not be able to attend. My work schedule is changing, so we'll have to see if I get lucky, but
crossed.
Yep.
So yes, but we will be continuing, and I'm very excited. Do pop in to the Temporal Entourage, share your experiences with the book. Do go forth and leave a review. Most important thing you can do to promote the author and to see the sequels to this story we all loved. If you feel moved, you might send an email to Tor and say, by the way, Mr. Clark, we really liked his books. Please buy more of them and publish them. I don't know, but we all have a bit more time when we're not out commuting, so why not? Does anyone else have last minute things they'd like to share before we wrap up? All right, thank you all for being here. Alan, I hope you had a good time for your first time. It was good to have you with us. David, Bill, thank you for bringing your expertise as professional authors. Everyone, thank you for being here day in, day out, month after month. You enrich my life, and I'm so happy to share Steampunk with all of you. To everyone who enjoyed us in the comments, Robert, Don, Charity, thank you for joining us in the comments, for sharing your questions and observations there. I look forward to seeing what else we discuss next month. All right. Good night.
Good night, all.
Night.
Good night.